Hi there and welcome again to the Explaining History YouTube channel. This is another video I'm doing on the subject of coursework. Lots of people are getting ready to do theirs around now, and this is one of the trickier parts about it, understanding that historical debates change over time. Now, when you're doing your coursework, you're not being asked really to tell a big story. What happened with Martin Luther King? What happened with the generals in the First World War? What you're being asked to do is to look at a question: the generals were incompetent, how far do you agree? And what you have to say on the subject, yes, I think they were, no, I think they weren't, has obviously been said before. It's been said many, many times before. And the question has been answered many, many times before by many, many eminent professors of history. And it's been answered in lots of different ways, so this adds a kind of a complication to things. You might start off by going, well, it's my argument that the generals appeared incompetent, but actually they were kind of on a learning curve. And you'd be surprised if you hadn't done any reading to know that this has already been argued. One of the kind of more recent additions to the debate, Gary Sheffield, argued this, I think, from about the 1990s onwards. So it would look pretty daft, wouldn't it, if you said, here's my original new brilliant idea, and it's been said long ago by somebody else. The argument that the generals were incompetent has been made by several different historians at several different times. So you need to understand not only that the argument does change over time, but in your given topic, how it changes over time. And if you understand that, then you're going to be on the high road to writing a really decent piece of history. Now, here's how I do it, and what I suggest here is you get guidance from your teacher, because the teachers are the ones that mark this. They get sent off to exam boards to be moderated, but it's really the teachers that will decide. So they always have their own particular little likes and dislikes as to where things go. But following your introduction, let's say you're doing on the generals and you're doing a coursework on the question, were the generals incompetent, or the generals were incompetent, how far do you agree? And your argument, and if you're not sure about arguments and where to put them in introductions, look back through this series of videos, because they're written talked about that loads and loads of times. So you write your argument, your introduction and your argument saying, yes, I think basically they were incompetent. Then you say words to the effect of, I'm not the first person to explore this. There has been a long and varied discussion since the end of the First World War up until the centenary now on the merits of the generals. You don't have to include every book written on the subject, because you'd have to write a book of your own if you did that. So what you need to do is in about 300 words or so, create a little historiographical section in your essay. I normally suggest perhaps 400 words. If you've got a coursework of about 4,000, that's a tenth, and that's kind of respectable. And focus on how the arguments changed over time. Look at several different generations of historians. Now, if you type in World War I generals historiography to Google, you're probably going to get something that's going to help you. If you can't find out about the historiography, email me or message me here, or go to the Explaining History Facebook page and get me, and I'll give you some pointers as to what the historiography is and who you need to look at. Disclaimer, not having people cheat, just being a nice guy. Anyway, once you know the various generations of historical debate, and your teacher will obviously also be able to tell you this, then you look at perhaps one significant historian from each of them, and you're probably going to wind up looking at 3 or 4 significant historians, and you say, in 1918 these kinds of things were being said and thought popularly. This is what people generally tend to believe, and this historian articulated them. The arguments seemed to change in the 1930s, and again in the 1960s, and then again in the 1990s for these very reasons. And then you can say, and now I've looked at how the argument has changed 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and I am now going to show you my argument, which is based on things that have been said before. Now, you don't have to worry about it being based on things that have been said before, because none of us can really claim any kind of originality. That doesn't exist in history, really. We're always building on the shoulders of previous historians and previous scholars, and sometimes we look at things and think, well, that actually kind of needs to be consigned to the dustbin now. But as we go through time, we get better and better understandings of things. So your argument, in essence, needs to be based on the things that have been said on this subject before. Okay? Thanks. Bye-bye. Oh, and remember to subscribe and say nice things. And check us out on Facebook. Bye.